It's time for some Starfield reviews.
Hello, we're back with another episode of Before You Buy. That show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. It's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking Starfield. This is a big one to tackle.
True.
It's a game that's been in the works for many years from a game development studio many people love and some people have been turned off by in recent years. It's a completely new thing from them. It's not an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout sequel. It's an ambitious
Well, technically, it's a Skyrim sequel.
space exploration game with its own new worlds and lore. So after playing a review copy and spending many hours with this game, personal opinion up front here, I like Starfield. I don't know if I love it. It has a lot of flaws, and in some places doesn't quite hit the heights I was hoping it would, but real simply put, I've enjoyed my time in this game world. If you were hoping Bethesda would make an epic game that would feel nothing like what they've done in the past and be completely glitch-free and change the world, well, then you might be a bit disappointed. But
Obviously not. But at least the main story quest is good.
if you're the type of player that was just looking for the next Skyrim, the next Fallout, and just like embracing the Bethesda gameplay and vibe like a warm blanket, then I think you'll be satisfied. Starfield is a complicated one to talk about, and I do think everyone's going to argue about it. It's going to be a divisive one. On the surface, it doesn't look very nice, it has weird NPCs, it does have bugs, and the space exploration isn't
It has a pretty decent amount of bugs, in fact.
as endless and as cool.
But less than you would expect from a Bethesda game. AKA, it's not Fallout 76 over again. It's like 30% Fallout 76 over again.
As some were hoping. Like I said, it's flawed, but it's an entertaining Bethesda-style game with some charm, some great factions, beautiful music, deep side quests, weird stuff to discover, and some cool lore. It took a while, but for me, the good outweighed the bad. For you, I don't know. That's the point of this video. We're gonna try and work on that. Let me explain why and break down.
It's a Bethesda game. It's gonna be crappy, it's gonna be buggy, it's gonna be a mess. But at the end of the day, it's like, is it worth playing? Yeah, probably until you get bored of it. That's the reality of these things.
All the stuff you can expect in the game. And just so you know, this video you see here is as spoiler-free as we could possibly do. You know, in the 100 hours or more you could spend in this game, we tried to keep most of the footage on screen here to within the first few hours, just because like there is a lot of good surprises and I think stuff worth seeing yourself for the first time. And this footage is captured on both Xbox Series X and PC. You'll be able to tell by the frame rate. We'll talk about that all later. So in the game, you start out, you create your character, you pick some defining backstory and traits, and get going. You're a miner on some remote mining planet, and you stumble upon something that quickly gets you whisked away, conscripted into a group called Constellation. They're like a group of space explorers, where in this world, the humans are all over the galaxy and all over planets and just kind of doing the things humans do in the future. Constellation is a small group still just focused on exploration and the vast mysteries of space. And there's a good main quest here with some good characters. Sure, they look a little awkward.
Notice that the first thing that the game actually showed him when he approached this NPC is the chair. That you want to interact with the chair. Oh, that's classic.
Characters. Sure, they look a little awkward, but there's some good voice acting from some of the main companions, and dealing with their personality quirks and life differences is fun. Some of them, especially early on, like Sam Coe, have some good charm to them. Spend some time with them. While characters may look generic on the surface, some of them might surprise you. But the actual main quest itself is interesting. Like I said, while your character is not voiced, you still seem to have some agency and choice in how things go down. And there's a good mystery to unravel that, again, I won't spoil.
Yeah, it actually has real dialogue options, which is unexpected, honestly, in the current state of Bethesda things. But it does, which is a great boon and amazing.
For me, personally, I actually just wasn't into the game for the first few hours, though. It takes a while to get its hooks into you. The opening mission is a bit bland, you don't really get that wow moment, and the first city you visit, while being really big and grand, felt a bit boring and weirdly dull. But as you work your way through the main quest line, which I suggest trying to focus on a bit, at least up until you get to the city of Neon.
I mean, I'm gonna give you it straight up and simple. If you buy this game and you focus on anything but the main quest line, you're just gonna ruin your experience and anything good that you wanted for the game. The game is the main quest line. Other than that, well, you can literally see the quality and polish right here, right? With these pixels. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole game, other than this main quest.
That's when the game really unfolds and you're more powerful, you've got a good ship, you're with a faction or so, and learn more about these worlds, and you're just kind of going nuts. And one of the main things...
Also, this is your running speed. It's like roughly 2 times slower than anyone would ever like. Moving is pain.
Game, like, there's a lot of combat.
Look at this. A toddler can crawl faster.
Much as you are an explorer and you can talk your way out of some things, you're still gonna end up killing a lot of dudes. And thankfully, the shooting feels pretty good. Depending on your stats, sometimes enemies will be a little bullet spongy, but not as bad as you'd think. Guns are loud.
Depending on the weapon, honestly. Because some weapons are trash. And it's like, you don't even know if you're shooting them. Some other weapons, though, look good. So it's a pretty much mixed thing. It's like you got your good weapons that actually feel like weapons, and then you have your non-weapons that should not have been weapons because they are absolutely abysmal to use. And yes, some enemies are beyond bullet spongy. But that's to be expected. It's Bethesda.
And punchy and aggressive, and the feedback when bullets or lasers hit enemies gives you a nice proper like thwack. Melee is meh, but you can embrace some stealth.
Sometimes, mostly not though.
It gets a bit stronger as you level it up, and I never found myself completely 100% stealthing a location. Things would always tend to fall apart for me, but it does seem to be a semi-viable playstyle as long as you're adaptable. It's not overly RPG from numbers and stats and points and magic, more from the gameplay approaches, which I'll get to. But skill tree-wise, it's kept fairly simple as well, with you spending points in one of a few categories to access some benefits, and each of those...
Ah, the reskinned mole rats. They're just gonna burrow into a, what's it called? Oh, roof. Yeah, that's right.
Have their own multiple tiers or levels that you can dump more points into to get more out of it. So to unlock the next tier, it's not about just dumping a point though. You need to complete like little objectives or like a checkbox challenge first. So like instead of Morrowind and Oblivion and just jumping a ton of times to get better stamina, now you actually have like a checklist, like say shoot 20 bad guys to get better at pistols, or carry 75% of your carrying weight for X amount of miles to get an available upgrade to up.
Yeah, this is half of the perks, as you can see. 10% damage, 20% damage, 20% damage, and woohoo, 30% so innovative. Yeah, the talent system is either a huge... Again, everything in this game currently is like a huge hit or miss. Like this, it's just a stat. And at least it's self-levels, so you don't have to hustle through too much, but still.
Upgrade your encumbrance, which, holy crap, the game is pretty ruthless with that, or maybe I'm just a hoarder. But these little objectives do get a little bit more complicated once you get further down the tree. I don't know if it was like necessarily needed, but that to me is a minor nitpick. Otherwise, it works and I like it. Back to combat though, what sold it for me was the weapon variety. There's a good amount, all with their own use cases and manufacturers, from kind of standard to super futuristic, and even some surprises. There's a lot of good, satisfying choices. Then they also bring over the weapon mod crafting system from Fallout 4 with some tweaks, which I thought was a great system there.
That's
and
good.
Also very cool here. It makes for a pretty staggering amount of options and things to hunt for and craft and work towards. And you're getting weapons, spacesuits, out of space clothing, and lots of resources for your journey. And yeah, you can like sneak into someone's apartment or a shop and steal stuff just like any other Bethesda game, but you're usually getting the best stuff by exploring. And exploring is complicated. Unfortunately, It's a bit too weird for my liking.
Exploring's non-existent.
Too
That's
many
what he
hang-ups.
means.
There are a lot of cool planets and big cities and some towns. There are also a bunch of randomly generated planets. Now, Bethesda was...
There's absolutely no freedom of movement, by the way. The planets, you're actually in just a giant box. You can't go out. You know, you're just stuck where it puts you in the loading screen, okay? That's pretty much it. And space is also a box, by the way. You can't. It's just an invisible walls in each direction. You can't go actually anywhere. So it's like you're just being put in a room when you're actually in space. And that kind of ruins the experience for a lot of people.
Was upfront about this. They set expectations about how they were randomly generated and how it works, but I still just, it doesn't feel quite...
Yeah, you see all this? Fake. You can't go anywhere. You're literally stuck pretty much in this small sector that you were popped in. That's it. You can't go anywhere outside it.
Quite right. So,
and none of this has anything.
Exploration itself is a lot of loading screens and menus. You can look at a big map, warp to a new sector, and float around and look at a planet, maybe talk to another pedestrian ship, do a few things.
Maybe.
Then you look at the planet with your scanner, and then you can see everywhere you can really land, or really what the planet has to offer. Then you
I remember someone commenting, they said it's gonna take 20 hours to fully to run around a planet in real time. Yeah. Okay.
Click on that, and then a loading screen, and then you're landed.
Yep.
Then you have to click leave ship when you're landed, and then it loads you out there briefly. You don't just hop off. So do you see, there's like a lot of barriers. The presentation, the boringness of
he's
just
gonna show the jump?
clicking around on a map or a scanner all really hurts the experience. It's not as...
It's a little bit better from the back, but sometimes you see it from the front, and that's like, what the fuck is going on?
as smart as it comes off initially. You know, presenting you with fuel consumption and a bunch of numbers to seem science-y. You're really just clicking on stuff.
Oh,
and
space battle, nice.
Same goes for...
I hope he's gonna return to space battle.
Actually scanning stuff on the planet's surface. Not the greatest thing from a fun standpoint, but yeah, speaking of planet surfaces, from that whole planet to landing sequence I mentioned, once you're out there, if you're on a randomly generated planet, you roam around what is typically a pretty ugly biome, slowly sprinting and running out of stamina, jet boosting around and checking out abandoned factories or caves that typically have a door to click on and load into what is like a typical Bethesda dungeon. And from there you can
And that's the problem. It shouldn't be a typical Bethesda dungeon. Like, how long Bethesda is gonna remake, you know, pretty much just Morrowind. This is literally Morrowind in space. It's not even Skyrim in space, honestly. It's just the same shit. They'd never try to improve on anything. It's just the same crap. You go to abandoned space station, you know, Earth, you know, the abandoned ship dock. Guess what? Guess what, homeboy? It's supposed to be abandoned forever, and no one cares about it. Guess what? It's full of. That's right. Eatable sandwiches, and everything looks in pristine condition because and there's a lot of pens. There's an astonishing amount of pens in the game, and they're different color, but they're not different actual pens. It's just like it's they didn't even care to, you know, make alternative skins for alternative items, so you can enter an abandoned place and it's filled with new garbage, even though it's supposed to be abandoned for, you know, 100 billion years, okay? And you're still gonna find at least 50 eatable sandwiches there.
Really blast your way through and get some decent loot. It doesn't always amount to too much, and it doesn't usually have anything complex, but it does mean it feels like you can kind of endlessly space dungeon run. It may not be of the highest quality, and you may see some stuff repeat. Every so often, I found myself landing on a planet and seeing something cool and walking towards it and finding something totally weird. But
I bet when you actually have played, like, you know, like 20 hours, all the caves are actually the same thing, you notice, because there's most likely like 5 different cave layouts.
Most of the time, to me, it felt a little dull, and I preferred focusing on like the towns and the quests.
Oh, here's your boss, by the way. Looks ugly. That's one. Two. The dialogue options for the main quest are okay, but any other kind of interactions with these people is abhorrent. You click on her, give her shit, and then you're like, okay, I'm done giving you shit, and you end the dialogue, and she says, see you later, or some kind of garbage like that, and she's literally constantly following you. Like, what are you supposed to do? Sometimes you engage dialogues with them and they don't even turn around to face you. So you're talking to them while they're looking in a completely different direction. It's pretty bad. It is pretty bad.
Because the more
it's the basic Bethesda stuff when you talk to a companion, but this time it's real bad.
Into those,
it's real
the better
annoying.
it gets. And holy shit, they give you a lot. Like, from expeditions where you're just looking for stuff, to getting into some messes with the faction quests and their own individual activities within, to random long-running quests you'll get from, like, a shop or some guy, to job postings. There's a staggering amount of stuff to do in this game. Oh, and even piracy, which does remind me I should mention the ship stuff. So when you're in orbit, you can engage with other ships, like chat with them or get into combat. Combat is fairly simple, but pretty good. It gets the job done.
Combat's fairly simple and fairly monotonous and boring. In reality, it's just, what do you want to call it? A rail shooter, pretty much like that. Because all you're gonna do is find a target. You're gonna pew 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 on it. It's gonna fly past you. You're gonna turn around and you're gonna pew 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 on it again. There is literally never a situation where you can do anything else in this game. That's it. That is space combat. It is as boring as, upgrading your ship so it has more bars and then you just put the bars where you want the power to go. Space combat is an absolute abysmal joke.
Actually kind of do VATS from Fallout. Like, get a good lock on the ship and it zooms into them in slow motion, and then you can choose to target, say, their shield generator first, and then go for their engines with a different weapon, something like that. How capable your ship actually is, though, depends on how you build it. And then you can cycle power to engines to speed up, maybe disperse a bit of power to weapons to have more power behind them, or put it all towards your grav drive so that you can, like, light speed warp jump out of there quicker. The flying around isn't super complicated. Again, like, you're just in kind of a big space arena separated by loading screens, which sucks, but hey, It's fun to blow up other ships. Still, for me, I gotta emphasize the bigger thrills were on the ground. I had a lot of fun tackling missions and quests in different ways.
Oh, by the way, most of these things you just go past through, The bigger ones you actually collide with, but the smaller ones, you just sail on through it like it's not even there.
Quests in different ways, and stumbling through and making dumb choices and seeing the game react. Like, sometimes I felt really slick and smooth. Other times, the complete opposite of what I expected to happen happened. And sometimes I just went rash and went in guns blazing. And all of it was entertaining and sometimes surprisingly hilarious. Now, speaking of hilarious, I guess it's worth mentioning the buggy nature of the game. No, Starfield is not immune from the typical Bethesda stuff you've seen in their other games. I mean, it feels...
Imagine picking your parents being alive and then interacting with this absolute soulless thing, bruh.
Feels like a Bethesda game you've seen before, from gameplay to just like the feel, the vibe of it all. But that also boils down to weird, silly, buggy things that'll happen in the game. Like, I'll walk into my ship and see a crewmate.
It's nice that he's pointing his gun at you,
hovering 2 feet above the ground, or clipping through a kitchen table. Now, during a conversation with an...
Hey, at least they fixed the T-posing. T-posing is not really there too much. But enemies getting stuck in walls and doors and, flying. That's a different... Flying when they can't fly is a different thing.
NPC, another character will walk into frame and the camera will wig out as they clip through them and do something funny.
Yep.
People will disappear in a blink. Like, if you've seen it in a previous game of theirs, you might see it here. Now, you might not see it as much, as often, but that goofiness is still there. Does it break the game? No. Haven't really had any catastrophic issues other than getting stuck on a chair and having to reload my save. But it can break immersion a bit. It's not a disaster, but you'll see some weird stuff occasionally. It's worth... Some people are more sensitive to this stuff, so it's always worth bringing up. All that stuff does, however, contribute to making the game feel a bit old in spots. Some towns are like rich with detail and have a surprisingly dense amount of NPCs on screen, but other areas like the planet terrain or even some sections of, say, New Atlantis...
Oh yeah, because this is easy. The towns were created by humans. Every planet you visit is RNG generated, except maybe like a single small part of it.
Just look flat and drab and weird, especially at a lot of times of day. And that's on PC and Xbox versions of the game. It's just not the cleanest or newest looking game. And it's a shame, considering
They have the same animation, by the way. They have literally the exact same animation.
Massive scope of everything. The town density, like I said, is great oftentimes, and when you're in space, the planets and the effects and the asteroids look pretty great. Or say if you're on a moon looking up at like Saturn and it's casting a light, that stuff is awesome. But the rest of it really leaves a lot to be desired. And as you probably know, frame rate is 30 frames per second on console, and in our experience, for the most part, it was a very solid 30. On the PC side, of course, everybody's machine is different, and who knows how it'll be at launch. We've already had some patches and some updates and stuff like that. But we haven't had many issues after messing around with some of the settings. Not the biggest amount of options there, but we've been able to play it fine on our end. Now, switching back to another positive note, I did allude to all the stuff the game lets you do, like weapon mod crafting, but also researching to make special crafting components.
By the way, every single time this happens, because it's a loading screen.
As well as your cooking recipes, suit mods, which acts kind of like the weapon mod system. You can also build outposts on planets, kind of like Fallout, and set that up to generate resources. And yeah, it can all be a lot, but the best thing I found myself spending time and money on was the shipbuilding. To me, it absolutely delivers. Building is easy to grasp and fun to slowly get more and more crazy with it. Parts snap together. The game very clearly and intelligently shows you what can and cannot work, and you're doing it all in real time. There's a lot of options too, like small ships, space trucks for hauling, a bigger battleship, and I just loved adding onto my ship and then seeing it on the landing pad in real time and going, whoa, and then going in the ship and seeing how the interior changed. Like, it's all satisfying and addictive. I got hooked on this.
By going into the ship, by the way, he means loading into the ship.
It's like I did building settlements in Fallout 4, and it just improved the whole experience. Even if I was dissatisfied with a lot of the space exploration, seeing the ship I made in action, landing on planets, docked at a city, was cool as hell, and I found myself saving up for a new engine or a new type of weapon to mount on it all the time. These were the main points we wanted to hit today, really. There's a lot of game here, and despite spending a lot of time with it...
Well, it looks cool at first, but then you notice, like, how the fuck does any of this actually make sense?
We haven't seen every inch of it. There's both
like
stuff
Legos
we couldn't spoil here, and also just a lot of secrets to uncover, stuff that we haven't even come across yet. Starfield is a flawed game with some aspects that just don't quite reach the heights they should, but it has plenty of merits, and the more time you put into it, the more it shows you its, flavors. We're probably going to be talking about this one for a while. It is a Bethesda game I was expecting, really, even more so than I thought. If you like Bethesda games, even with this one's significant shortcomings, you might like this one. Now, it didn't do everything I wanted it to do, but like, I like the characters, the world, the civilizations, cool science and guns and ships. And as much as I have my complaints, I'm looking forward to continue playing it, and I pretty much recommend it. Obviously, depending on the type of player you are and your expectations for this game. Hopefully, I laid it out enough for you so you get where I'm coming from. This is a before you buy. You know how this goes by now, right? I give you some pros, some cons.
Yep, well, anyway, this was probably the most meek review you could possibly ever want, honestly. It didn't go into, well, anything risky, honestly. Anything too good, anything too bad. Essentially, you probably got from this the same thing that you understood before actually, seeing the gameplay or anything, or hearing anything about it. It's a Bethesda game. This time, it's not horribly buggy. The main storyline is, well, as decent is. And, well, it's a Bethesda game. If you're a Bethesda fanboy, if you're a Bethesda fanboy, you would have loved it no matter what. But, if you're not a Bethesda fanboy, it's slightly questionable, because the moment that you understand how little actual freedom you have in this game versus how much freedom you should be having in this game, it kind of sours it a lot. But in any case, this was Wizard Citizen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.